Hello there, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we will dive into implementing OpenID Connect with Next.js. If you're looking to add authentication to your multi-tenant app without relying on Next-auth, this is the video for you, because currently it's not that easy to do this for some reasons. I came across this issue 2 years ago. Somebody created this 2 years before that, 2020. They were asking how to set the Next-auth URL, and if you come down, it was moved into a discussion, but the problem still exists. Vercel published a SaaS kit called Platform Kit, I guess. So yeah, the Platform Starter Kit. It's great if you're hosting on Vercel, but if you're not hosting on Vercel, like me, and you have a self-hosted Docker container running your Next app, then it is a pain point because the Next.auth doesn't support it right away. There are a lot of hacks which are being discussed here in this thread. I have tagged that in my blog post. I will also share the blog post in the video description, so you can just go and check it out. So that is the problem we are trying to solve. How to do authentication in a most effective way for multi-tenant application. The main pain point here is that when you have multiple domains, the Next.auth doesn't allow you to change the URL of the domain, and it wanted the static URL, which will not work for most of the multi-tenanted applications. So that means you have to come up with some other way to do authentication. So in this blog post, I'm just going to focus on my use case, which is OpenID Connect and OAuth, but Next.auth provides you with so much more. It's a really great library. You can build your own authentication systems with it. It also supports a lot of OAuth providers, but we're not going to discuss anything else except OpenID Connect and OAuth. So here's the code. So in the blog post, you can just go and then find the code. If you're not ready to watch the video, just go and check out the code. It's publicly available. You don't have to sit and watch this video. First, let's understand what OpenID Connect is. It's a simple identity layer on top of the OAuth 2 protocol, allowing clients to verify the identity of the end user based on the authentication performed by the authorization server. And in my use case, it involves, I have an OpenID Connect authenticated Next app with an OpenID Connect server called OpenID, which is used by ABP application. So most of my applications are .NET applications. Most of my APIs are .NET APIs written in .NET framework in C#. So I usually use JWT tokens to authenticate these applications between the front and the back end. So that is the use case. So the current options. There are two libraries which I have used previously for the pure client-side React apps. If you're just using the client-side app, these are really good options. OIDC client TS, which is a fork of OIDC client JS. So the development of OIDC client JS stopped at 2021. These guys took it up from there, maintained it, and it's a really good project if you want to implement the authentication for React apps. My problem with this library is that it stores the token in the browser's local storage or session storage, depending upon what you choose. That's what we're trying to avoid. I'm trying to store the token in the browser's cookie. That is the only thing which changes from what they are doing in this OpenID client TS. So how are we accomplishing this? Let's walk through the implementation steps. I'm going to use OpenID client library. It's a fully certified OpenID Connect client library for Node.js. To manage the session, I'm using Iron Sessions library. If you want to follow along, I have blog posts. Just go and look. All the commands I'm going to do here are already available in the blog post. The first step is to create a new Next.js app. I have a terminal open, just enter, and then just choose all the default options because they are actually pretty good. And once you chose all the default options, the packages will be installed. It might take a bit depending upon your internet connection. Wait for it to finish. Once it's completed, let's move into that directory. Okay, so I'm inside the newly created application. Now I want to install 2 packages in this application. The next one is creating a bunch of files. So we are going to create all these files. Just keep in mind that I'm using new item, which is a PowerShell command to create this files. If you are in Linux, just choose touch. The environment variable should be in the source directory. So yeah. Okay, so now let's open this in code. Let's go and check all the files we have. So we have a login route, logout route, OpenID route, and then the sessions route. And the page and the layout are the base pages, which are created by the default template. And I also have a login component, a hook, a library, and the environment variable. So let's go and fill up all these files with the code. So the first thing we fill up is the environment variables. So this is already a running application I have. This is part of my domain. So I'm hosting my ABP application in abp.endosubash.com. And this is a default ABP application. If you don't know ABP, it's an open source web application framework written in .NET. And it comes with a lot of defaults. Which includes authentication and authorization, and it uses OpenID. So we are going to use OpenID as our authentication and authorization server. And in that application, I have created a client called ABP Next React, and I have mentioned the application redirect URL as localhost 3000/auth/OpenID because that's important. So when you create the application, when you create the client in your OAuth provider, you can use anything you want. You have OAuth, you have Okta, and there are so many OAuth providers out there. You can just use any of those ones which are available for free. The workflow is the same. So go and create a client and then take the client ID and put it in the environment variable, and make sure the redirect URL you have provided in that client is actually this, your application URL /auth/OpenID, because that's the path we have created in the application. So the next thing is, did I copy the environment variable? No, I didn't. So first thing is copy the environment variables. And in the scope, I have mentioned offline access. You don't have to, because I mentioned it because it's easier. If you mention offline access, you get the refresh token as well. It's easier to refresh the access token. That's another video. If you want, I can make it for you, how to refresh the token. We're going to focus on just login, logout in this video. So in the lib folder, I have all the required functions and then the interfaces. So I only need 2 functions. One is get session and get client. And then we have a bunch of constants, which are default session and session options. And then we want to declare an interface to see how our session data looks like. This session data is a very limited set of data because we are using iron session. I think by default browsers limit per cookie size, I think. So I think you can store up to 400 kilobytes of data, 4,000 kilobytes, I guess. So make sure what you put in this session data is smaller. So once you have an access token there, it's already fills up quite a bit of data. So just design it in a way that you don't fill the session data with too much information. We are going to have a login, access token, code verifier, user info, and tenant ID is just a custom tenant ID I added for my needs, just to show how to add custom properties here. And then you just create a default session. And this session options is from iron session. So we are configuring the ETL, the cookie option, the name of the cookie, and the password of the cookie, because the cookie is encrypted. You don't have to use iron session. Next.js already provides a way to manage cookies. If you think like, why am I using a library? I don't want to, just skip this part. You can just use your normal Next.js session library as well. I just use iron session because I kind of like it how they implemented things. So, and then the guest session just calls the iron session and then gives you the session variable, which is the session data. And this is the client. So get client method goes to this config. Client config basically just creates an object out of all the environment variables we have provided. And then we will use that environment variable to create a client for ourselves. These are just handy functions, so I group them together and then put it in the libs.ts file. Let's copy that and then let's put it here. So this is the first route we are going to create. As you can see, there is nothing going on. We are just getting the session and then we are just sending the JSON back with whether we are logged in or whether we are, what is the user info. If we are not logged in, we are just sending the default session back. I don't think I have to explain this too much. And the next one is the interesting part. So here I have a login route. So this is where things get interesting for me, because now I'm constructing my own authorized URL. That means I can dynamically change the URL of the tenant according to my needs. So let's say you have a client who has two different domains, and all these things has to be handled in the authorization side, where the authorization server knows about this new domain you have, and then you can construct your authorization URL however you want. That basically solves this problem of like dynamically setting the Next.auth URL, where I don't care about the space URL, which in Next.auth was kind of coming from this environment variable or the Vercel URL, which is the space reason I started looking for other options. Yeah, so I'm generating everything according to my needs here. There will be a request object here. You can check the current host. You can check all the other things related to that host. You can do all your validations, and then you can generate the authorization URL here. So that is the big advantage. And then once the authorization URL is done, you save the session. Why do you save the session? Because to generate the authorization URL, you need the code verifier. So you have to save the code verifier to the session. And then you have to create the code challenge based on the code verifier. And we need the code verifier when the callback happens. That's why we are saving the session. And once the URL is generated, we just redirect to the authorized URL. In a lot of multi-tenanted architectures, there will be a lot of custom domains. It kind of helped me to control the entire authentication process. Since my auth server is running separately, I need to construct this according to my needs. I hope it will also help you solve your problems. So the next thing to talk about is the logout URL. Here, it's just a standard end session URL. We are constructing the end session based on the current access token and also the client configuration, which is the post logout redirect URL. You just generate a state, which can be anything, but we're still using the generated from generators from OpenID client. We are resetting the session and then saving it basically to logout. And but when we reset the session here, technically our application is logged out, but in the server we have to use the end session URL so that this access token is not valid anymore. That's what we are doing here. Once the redirect happens, the auth server will redirect you back to the proper redirect URL. That's the post redirect URL you have mentioned here. And the next, this is the important part where when the login happens, so when this login route was successful and we have created the code verifier, so when this redirect is successful, you will be shown a page where there is a username and password. If you want to know how that will look like, I have ABP React project which has implemented that. So I will first log out. So this is the login. So when you when you do this login process, this is what happens. So you go to OAuth server and you are being asked to provide a username and password. That will be admin, and then I will provide the default password for the ABP applications. And now you're logged in. How that happened? That happened because when the route redirected to the authorization server, and then you provided the username and password, the username and password are validated. After the validation is successful, you are redirected back to our application to this route, which is auth/OpenID. And this redirect has a bunch of information which we need to create the token. So we get the session, we get the client again, but this time we parse the requests with the client. So we get the parameters which are coming from the successful login, and then use that parameters and then call the callback function with the redirect URI. And we are going to pass along the code verifier as well, which we created during the login process. And that will give us a token. The token will have two things. One is access token and also a refresh token, because we have used offline access as a scope. Once we have the access token, we can also use the same client to request user info using the tokens we received. That will provide the sub and given name, email, and email verified. So these are claims which are default to my auth server. This might be different for you, so just design it accordingly. And then you can save the session, and then you can redirect the user to the post login URL. So in my app, I have redirected to this URL, which is abpreact.antosubash.com. So now we have a login component, which will use the use session hook, which we have created here. So this hook is basically a fetch to the session. The session will provide whether you are logged in or not with user info. That's what's happening here, and we are using that here and then displaying a login or logout button. Okay, so I updated the session, but I didn't update the login or any other endpoint. So I will just go and update all these things. So I have updated the login. I will update the logout, and I will also update the OpenID Connect, and I will also update the login component and the use session hook. So now let's put it together in the pages, where you can see that we are just getting the session, which is an async function. So this is a server-side call, but this login is a client-side. So we have use client, so component. So we are using a server-side component inside a client-side component. This is how the app directory work, and we are making sure this session data is available in both server and also in the client. Okay, now I will try to run this. Okay, we are already logged in. Why? Because I logged in here with this same app to the same auth server. So I will first log out so that there is nothing in this. So I still have the code verifier. So let's go and delete all the cookies so that you see what's going on. So I go and go clear site data. So I go to localhost storage, session storage, and I go to cookies. So there is nothing in any of the storages and also in the cookies, and there is no data in the whole application. So let's go and remove the state and then run the app again. Now we have nothing. So you have empty JSON in the session and you're logged out. That's why you see the login button. So I click login now. I see my application, which is correct. And then I will use my username and password. I log in and I should be redirected. And now you see that I'm logged in. I have a code verifier. I have an access token. I have a user info, which is sub, name, email, which is correct. And I have a property which says I'm logged in. Now let's go and see what happens in the storage. So you can see in the local storage, there is no keys. In the session storage, there is no keys. But in the cookies, we have a Next.js cookie, and the cookie value is encrypted. So, and the size is 2000 kilobytes, I guess. Yeah, technically that's what I want to achieve. I want to store my token in the cookie, not on the session storage, so that I get more security this way. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you find this useful. Of course, I have only handled login and logout. You can still do refresh token, which is also important because right now this session will be valid only for the time the cookie is valid. I think most of the time it's around half an hour. So after half an hour, we have to figure out when the token expires and then do the refresh of that token. And we also can build more and then set extra properties and figure out which host comes from where, all these things. Let me know if you are interested in the comments that I can do another video about how to refresh the session and improve this in some way. Yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. If you find the video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And yeah, feel free to leave your questions or feedback in the comments. And thanks for watching. Bye-bye.